You're now tuning in to Fatima Bey, the MindShifter. Get ready to shift your thinking and turn it into success.
Hello, and thank you for listening. Today's message is entitled, What Do You Really Produce? Have you ever noticed that sometimes people talk a good talk but don't really walk the walk? Or they claim to be one way and they really act another? Well, you can say you're compassionate, but are you really? Is that what we really see when we look at your life? You can say you're this and you're that, but does it match up with what we actually see? Well, my question again is, what do you really produce? You see, sometimes we can say we want to be a certain way. We can try to explain to people that we're a certain way. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's true. Do your words line up with your actions? Does your life line up with your claims? Now, that's not a judgmental question. It's a statement. It's just a matter-of-fact question. Now, I don't mean that are you perfect, because I'm certainly not. Even in all of my teachings and all of my messages that you may hear, sometimes I realize that, wait a minute, I still needed to apply this principle to that part of my life. I have done that. I have recognized that there are things that I teach that I've applied to my life, but then I realized, oh my God, I'm not applying it to the best of my ability. I could do better in this area. That's normal, because I myself do that. I'm not talking about that, and I'm not talking about judging other people for not being perfect. I'm saying, if you claim to be compassionate, can we see that? Does it show? Are those the results that we get? Now, one of the ways to know what's inside you is life will squeeze you. If you want to get apple juice, you press an apple. You're not going to get apple juice from an orange or a peach. You're not going to get apple juice from a cranberry. You can only get apple juice from an apple. Now, when life squeezes you, what do we get? You see, I worked in the bridal industry for a long time, over 20 years now. And something I've learned throughout my time working at the bridal industry is that weddings are squeezers. Weddings will squeeze you so we can see what's inside you. Let me tell you what I mean. If someone is acting like a bridezilla and they blame it on a wedding, the wedding is just squeezing what's already there. Ooh, I know that might sound mean, but it's true. Weddings squeeze people, and you find out what fruit you're really getting by the juice that comes out. Weddings squeeze people, so all of your insecurities, all your relationship dynamics, good, bad, right or wrong, they show up because weddings are a juicer. They squeeze you. All your familial issues pop up with weddings. Trust me, I've been at this for a long time, and this is true. Weddings test friendships. They push people to limits, generally speaking. So that is why so many issues come up around weddings, and it's not really because of the wedding. The wedding was just the method that squeezed the fruit to show you what's there. Think about that. I think every listener more than likely has been around a wedding, and you're starting to think about what I'm talking about. Being around weddings, trust me, it'll show you. It'll show you. It'll bring out the best or the worst in people. It's not bringing out anything that's not already there. Now, we all have issues. I want to add that in as well. We all have issues, just different kinds. None of us are perfect. We all have things we need to work on. There are no exceptions to that rule. Not as long as you're a human being. So I'm not saying that as a statement of judgment of, well, it squeezed out a horrible person, so you're a horrible person. Not necessarily. You might be selfish and you need to work on being not selfish. And that showed up because of a squeezer. You see, in life, something's going to squeeze you. Situations are going to squeeze you so that we can find out what juice is there. And you know the fruit by its juice. You know that a lemon and a lime look a little bit different, but they look a lot of the same outside of color. They taste similar, but they're actually different. And it's only if you squeeze a lemon enough that you can see the yellowish color. And it's only if you squeeze a lime enough that you can see the greenish color. But if you squeeze them just a little, they look the same. Probably never done that before to see what I'm talking about. But I'm sure most of you can probably picture that in your head. Sometimes life will squeeze you. What is the product that comes out? What are you really producing? You see, when life situations squeeze you, trials and tribulations and things happen to you, whether they're your fault or not, sometimes they're really not your fault. But, when life happens and things happen in life that squeeze you, that put pressure on you, what do you see? I would admonish you to examine that today and say, when life was pressing me, or right now while life is pressing me, what do I see? And to that I say, believe what you see. You see, if you notice that when you're pressed hard enough, you're a fighter, well, then you're a strong fighter. And that can be a good thing. If you see that when you're pressed hard enough, you can be vindictive, okay, then you have to work on that. And trust me, I think a lot of us can be vindictive if we choose to be. And it's real easy to go there. But the choice of whether or not to act on that vindictiveness is actually up to you. When life squeezes you, do you find that you're unforgiving? Well, then you need to work on that. When life squeezes you, do you find that you are still compassionate, even though they didn't deserve it? Well, now you don't need to work on that. You have proven what kind of fruit you are. When life squeezes you, do you find, when the pressure is put on, do you find that you get violent? Well, that's a problem, and it could be a criminal problem, so you need to work on that. And this is not a statement of judgment call, it's a statement of fact. What do you produce when you are put in the juicer? I really want you to think about this. Examine yourself. What are you really producing? What do you really produce? You claim to be this open-minded person, yet you are closed off to anyone who disagrees with you. Well, that's the exact opposite of open-minded. And I don't care if you're all the way on the left or all the way on the right. That's irrelevant. If you claim to be open-minded, when pressed, what do you produce? When you press a grape, you get grape juice. When you press and you squeeze an apple, you get apple juice. An orange, you get orange juice. A peach, you get peach juice. So forth and so on. What do we get from you when you are squeezed? You see, life is not always going to be perfect and wonderful and happy and comfortable. We need uncomfortable situations because those uncomfortable situations are our juicer, our presser. I have talked before in one of my episodes about my time at David's Bridal. I worked there for 10 years. During my time there, I was also the alteration manager for a good portion of that time. Well, I'm grateful for that time because it juiced me. I got to see what I was made of. So you don't really know what someone's made of until they're pressed, until they're tested, until they're put through a juicer. And life has its natural juicers. And many of those juicers will come into your home through your children, through your spouse, through whomever you're living with. What's your juice? What are you producing? What do you really produce? Now, what I produced back 10 years ago and what I produce now are different. Why? Because there's been some growth. And that's a good thing. But when life's pressures are on, believe what you see. Now, back to what I was saying about David's Bridal. I'm grateful for my time there because it was extremely, extremely, extremely stressful. I mean, you have no idea how stressful the bridal world can be, and especially, of all places, the alterations department. You know why? Because that's when the brides are the most stressed, is right before the wedding, and that's when they see me. Now, I was able to put a lot of brides' mind at ease, which is great. But for me, that pressure, not just from the bride, but from my employees and from my, bosses up above. I had pressure coming at me from every single point in that position. And I am not exaggerating. Trust me. Most of you probably couldn't handle it as long as I did. I wanted to quit so many times, but I didn't. And you know what? It built me. But it also showed me where my insecurities were. It also showed me where my strengths were. Showed me both my strengths and weaknesses. You can't work on what you don't see. Now, if you're listening to me, chances are you're one of these people that like to grow. So you want to know what's wrong so you can fix it. And sometimes, like I said, when life squeezes you, it doesn't show you what's wrong. It may also show you what's right. When you look around and examine your past, but also examine right now, do you feel pressured? What is it producing? What are you seeing? Because that juice that you see is what you need to work on, or be happy about, showing that you can be tough and still compassionate. You just got squeezed and that's what you saw. That's awesome. You're a tough, compassionate fruit. You see, again, when life squeezes you, believe what you see. And from there, you can rejoice in what you see or fix what you see that you don't like. That is your choice. But again, I say, when life squeezes you, what do you really produce? What do you really see when the pressure's on? I want you to think about that. I want you to examine that and work on it. Because it really is all about making ourselves better. The better we are, the better we can be in the world. And once again, I want to thank you for listening. If you have any question, comments, or concerns, please email me at radio@fatimabey.com. That's radio@fatimabey.com. And thank you again for listening.
Tune in next week for another segment of Fatima Bey, the MindShifter. For more of her teachings, subscribe to her YouTube channel at Fatima Bey, the MindShifter.